Hello and welcome to the Pederscope. I am your host, Steve Pederson. We are talking about keys to being the difference. This is episode 49 entitled Love Your Fears Away. Thanks for joining me. All this week on the Pederscope, of course, we are talking about the topic of love, and today is no different. However, before we start talking about love today, let's talk a little bit about fear. What is fear? Maybe there's a song. Maybe somebody should write a song. What is fear? Baby, don't hurt me. Good morning, Dennis. Thank you for joining us. What is fear? You know, we live in a day and an age where it seems like there's plenty of information. Everybody's got an opinion about fear. People say things like, it's false evidence appearing real. A friend of mine, Tiamo, David Torrey, he has a quote that says, the only thing, or no, that's a different quote, sorry. His quote is, fear is the only thing that gets smaller as you run towards it. Think about that for a second. Of course, there's the famous quote by Roosevelt, which is, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. There's a great quote, I think, by Marianne Williamson. Of course, we're talking about love this week. It says, love is what we were born with. Fear is what we learned here. Interesting thoughts on fear this morning. You know, I think personally fear gets a bad rap. Everybody's trying to get rid of fear, and fear is a bad thing. Fear is not really a bad thing. You know what? Fear actually has probably saved your life more than a couple of times, possibly. Fear isn't a thing to be hated or rejected or anything like that. Fear is actually something that can serve you. What I've heard, maybe you've heard of Elizabeth, I'm sorry, Elizabeth, I'm forgetting your last name. She's the author of that book, Eat, Pray, Love. I'm spacing her last name right now, but she has a thought or a perspective on fear where she treats fear as sort of like a big, clumsy oaf, almost like a bodyguard. Like it's not super intelligent, but it's there to protect you, and you have this opportunity to, talk to it and say, fear, thank you. Thank you for being there with me, and thank you for helping me out. I don't need you right now in this moment, so she talks about having it sit in the back seat of the car as she's driving. She doesn't let fear drive the car. She just lets it sit in the back seat and maybe give some directions from time to time. So fear is not necessarily a bad thing. It does get a bad rap. The dictionary says that fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain, or a threat. So fear is simply an emotion. What's interesting is fear is an emotion, love is an action. One of the things that we've been talking about here on the Pederscope for the last several days when we've talked about love is the importance that we place on love being an action, something that you are actively involved in doing. Love does. My wife will get that reference. She was telling me about a book or a reading plan that she's doing, which is just entitled Love Does. So I just said and so. Sorry about that. and then I apologized. I'm making all the classic speaking mistakes here. Fear causes... Oh, Elizabeth Gilbert. Yes, thank you, Dennis. That's right. Great author. And so fear causes inaction or paralysis, or it causes flight. In other words, separation. Love causes action and integration. I'll say that again. Fear causes inaction, also known as paralysis. That's a great point. Thank you for that. Flight, also known as separation. Love causes action and integration. Fear fends for self at the cost of others. Love sacrifices self on behalf of others. Kitty just joined us. Thanks, Kitty, for joining us. Welcome. We're talking about driving out fear with love. And I wanted to share an example with you. You know, Dennis just shared very great insight. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. And one of the sort of examples I wanted to share, personal example from my own life. As you can tell, behind me I have a bunch of guitars. I play guitar, and I play classical guitar, a solo classical guitar from time to time in a live setting. And this is a thing for me that has just always kind of been a source of fear. Like I constantly struggle with fear, and it's kind of because of what Dennis mentioned earlier. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, and that's been the fear behind when I go out and play. Oh, I'm going to make a mistake. I'm going to screw up. What are people going to think of me? And it didn't. Being in that fear and in that paralysis always made me nervous, gave me the jitters, which just made me play even worse and contributed to the mistakes that I would make. And I could tell you some crazy stories about that, but I won't right now. What the big shift for me was when I started, to stop thinking about myself and how I looked. Because even if things went well, I thought, oh, that's a great reflection on me. And it was just all about me. and of course, that's not very loving. When my mindset changed and I thought, I'm just here to serve people. I'm here to encourage them and bring something to them. And when that mentality, which I thought was a much more coming from a place of love as opposed to a place of fear, then my relaxation, I still got a little nervous before going up to play, but it changed my presence and just made it a much more enjoyable experience. And so I say that to say, one of the things we talk about, definitely. And one of the things I've learned is that, mistakes are just inevitable. You're going to make mistakes, and in some cases, that's something that endears you to people because it makes you more real. But when you just come from a place of love and service as opposed to a place of wondering how I'm going to look, much different story. And this is, of course, the key to being the difference. People are drawn to love. They're repelled by fear. So that's how this is the key. An action that you can take today is to think of one thing. Either think about it or write it down, whichever, that you are afraid of. And that might even be kind of a first step, because I think our first thought is, I'm not afraid of anything. Yeah, now get over that, because we all have fears, and we all have fears that we're constantly dealing with. So just write it down, right? What's one of those fears that constantly comes up for you? And to think about a way that you can turn that around, to love that fear away, to love that fear into the back seat, as Elizabeth Gilbert would say, and then do it. Take some action on loving your fears away. Sound like a plan? Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. Tune back in tomorrow. Thank you. Tune back in tomorrow, which is going to be Fabulous Friday, if you're joining me live, for an exciting conclusion of Love Week. What will it be? I don't know, but tune in every weekday morning at 8:35 a.m. Central Time. And if you want to catch up on past episodes of the Pederscope. You can find them at my website, stevepederson.com. Love you guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.